What's up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another Comically Boston Breakdown episode. This is episode 264 and today we are breaking down Andor Season 2 episodes 7 through 9 in the third bundle of 3 episodes with one more week remaining to wrap out Season 2. And episode 7 is titled Messenger, episode 8 is titled Who Are You, and episode 9 is titled Welcome to the Rebellion. And these 3 episodes, 7 not so much, but 8 and 9 might be 2 of my favorite Star Wars content television episodes ever, right? Like, they were really epic. Honestly, episodes 8 and 9 together felt like a movie. Like, it was so well done. And then, you know, like, having the 3 episode arcs that tell the whole story of that year, right? Like, because coming off of last week's episodes, we were in 3 BBY and Cinta got killed and Cassian and Bix took out Gorst at the end of that episode. And we also saw that Benjamin Bratt is going to be playing Senator Organa in this series because I believe just scheduling conflicts with the guy that normally plays him. And just last week, Luthen was real close and he should have killed Krennic while they were up there, you know? And they might regret not doing that, if you know what I mean. But we open this episode on 2 BBY and Rebel ships are landing on Yavin. So we just saw a few episodes back, in a few years back at this point, I think it was like 4 or 5 BBY at that point, and Cassian was stuck on that planet with a bunch of crappy rebels, and it looks like now the rebellion, resistance if you would, is now setting up shop on Yavin as their home base. And we see Willman, who we last saw with Saw Gerrera, is landing on this planet, and he goes to find Cassian, and we see Cassian is there with Bix, and he's got a bad scratch on his shoulder, and he's like, you know, got hit by a blaster shot maybe, and he's like, you know, in pain and he's hurt, so he's been laying low on Yavin and resting and healing. And Willman comes to see him, and Cassian asks Will where he has been, and Will doesn't answer and just says Luthen wants to know if you're ready to work again. And there's definitely like some beef between Cassian and Luthen, because he's like, why didn't he tell me himself? And Cassian doubles down and he looks at Will like, alright, why don't you tell us where the hell you've been? And then we cut over to Cyril, and he is on Gorman, and the factory was completely built. So that thing that we were talking about last episode, and oh, this giant factory that the Empire wants to build that will cover the plaza and the Gorman monument of all the people from the Gorman massacre, clearly got built. That giant building in the background right there, I'm pretty sure is that Imperial Armory that they were talking about. And we find out that the city has been under curfew, and that there has been a bombing at the naval depot, and that, you know, there clearly is still that rebel Gorman resistance fighting against the Empire here, and it is not peaceful. It is very much so wartime. But we also find out that Will has been on Gorman, and he tells Cassian that Dedra Meero is there, and he wants to take her out. And then we cut over to Dedra getting told by Partagaz that they weren't able to find another suitable resource, so that they will need to use the Calcite in the ground, you know, as their resource, I believe, to power the Death Star. And that after they're done digging, Gorman and the Gorman people will be no more. And so pretty much the Empire is just ready at this point just to wipe out the Gormans and take over this planet. But we see Cyril comes to Dedra, and he's starting to figure out that Dedra has been, you know, having him in the dark the whole time. And she kisses him and tells him to get his things ready and to be ready to leave when she tells him. And he's like, what the fuck's going on here? We then cut over to Mon Mothma, and she goes to a Senate meeting, and one of the Gorman senators that we've seen over the last couple episodes talks to her and tells her to protect herself. And he says they don't even bother to lie badly anymore, you know, and he's talking about the Empire and, you know, what's happening on Gorman and all the terrible things that the Empire's doing to their people. And, you know, he's a senator trying to help, but there's nothing he can really do at all. But we then cut over to the Gorman rebels arguing amongst themselves and one of the rebels says, if we lose ourselves and who the Gorman people are, then what's worth fighting for? And he's got a decent point. You know, because the people want to fight, and Rylands is like, listen, we shouldn't fight. Like, it's a terrible idea. We're outnumbered. They're the Empire. We're just like rebels. Like, but the people want to fight back. They're tired of dealing with the Empire, and they're a strong people, but they're a naive people to think that they can just overpower the Empire. They have gunpowder. They have firepower. They have numbers. You know, like they have resources. You know, like they're too dangerous an enemy. But we then cut over to Bigg bringing Cassian to a Force healer, and that weirdly consents that Cassian's there, and Cassian's not about it, and he's like, you know, doesn't believe in Force healers, and you know, apparently he had a bad experience with Force healers in the past trying to help Marva, and you know, he's just like not here for it at all. But the Force healer like consents that he's there. She says that most people carry their past with them like a burden, but some collect things along their way, and she was like, there's some clarity with him, that there is a path that he's going down and needs to go forward. She says that Cassian is a messenger, which is the title of that episode, and she asks Bigg, have you known him long? And Bigg says, I haven't remembered a time when I haven't known him. And she says, maybe you're the place he needs to be. And oof, so Bigg is like, Cassian needs Bigg, but Cassian needs to be a rebel, and that he's a messenger for, like, what does that mean? And this Force healer, like, and couldn't tell if she was like blind or not, but she definitely could sense the Force in the, you know, the will inside of Cassian, you know what I mean? Like, and it was strange. I couldn't tell how to take that scene, but I was like, ooh, that is interesting. But it does seem to have worked, because Cassian's shoulder is feeling better, and Bigg tells him that she sensed something, and that she knows he did too, and that's why Cassian is upset. But Cassian then takes off with Wilman, and one of the rebel generals starts to give him a hard time, and he's like, where are you going? Come on, you need to stay here. You're not allowed to take one of these ships. And Cassian's like, I'll be back. And Cassian looks at him and says, listen, don't push too hard. The day I need permission to come and go, I'm gone. And the general kind of looks at him and goes, that day is near. Like, you're going to get kicked out of the rebellion for all your shit. And ugh. We then cut over to see a bunch of Imperial cadets, a bunch of green little children, arriving on Gorham. And then we see Cassian and Will, and he's coming in real low, flying low, and he's like, Cassian, pull up a little bit. He goes, what, are you scared? And he's kind of like looking at Willman as he's flying like super low above the trees, but, you know, trying to avoid trackers, I'm guessing. And this kind of scares Will, but then we see Vel, who is Mon Mothma's sister, or cousin, and last 3 episodes, we saw Vel lost Cinta, and Vel and Cinta were going to be together, and oh, poor Vel. But I kept calling her Luthen's spy girl, because I couldn't remember her name for the life of me, but her name is Vel. And Vel comes to talk to Bigg, and she says that the rebels need Cassian. They're about to promote him to be more of a leader in the rebellion, and they're not just Luthen's puppets anymore. But, you know, he pulls this shit and leaves, and they want to kick him out. She's like, he's about to be promoted to a captain or a general. Well, he's a captain right now, but he's about to be promoted to a general, you know what I mean? Like, and he keeps fucking it up because he wants to be in charge of his own decisions, which, you know, you can't blame him. But Bigg reassures Vel that Cassian will be there when they need him. And she's like, okay, whatever, I hear you, but, you know, where is he now? And she's like, I don't know. But Cassian and Will on Gorham, and they go to take out Dedra Miro. And this is like a mission that they're on either on their own, or this is like a mission from Luthen directly through Wilman to Cassian type of thing. But they are on this planet trying to kill Dedra, and Cassian is in his room, and he's like scoping out the Imperial rooms with like a little scope across the way, and he like pulls out like a little mirror thing, and he sees that there are stormtroopers directly above his room that are also on like patrol, and the credits roll on episode 7. Which then brings us right into episode 8, titled Who Are You? Which is a long, crazy episode, but we, coming off of Will and Cassian on Gorman trying to take out Dedra, and we open the next morning, and Cassian is assembling his rifle, and there's the Imperial cadets that we saw last episode, and they're training in the center courtyard, and Wilman was sleeping with the girl that he was looking She was like looking at him all cute, and then we find out that next episode they were sleeping together. So now Willman kind of has a girl in this Gorman Rebels, and clearly that's why he wants to stay around here. But Cassian sees that they are building a fortress and barricading the building, and the Gorman Rebels are getting ready to attack the plaza, but the Empire is ready, and Rylance is there and sees them barricading, and he's like, this is a trap, and he looks at his daughter like, you can stop this, and his daughter's like, it's time to fight back. And he's like, God, you're gonna kill us all, like we're walking into a trap, like but they're not listening to him anymore. And Rylance goes and runs up and finds Cyril and asks him, what kind of being are you? How could you believe that? And he's talking to Cyril, and he's like, listen, they're attacking us and they're doing this and that. And Cyril's like, no, I haven't been here doing that. And Cyril has been getting played this entire time by Dedra. And really, Rylance knows it, but Cyril's just starting to put together that oh right, I've been getting played this entire time, and that the Empire is not doing any good on this planet. They're actually destroying this planet and trying to wipe out these people and steal their resources. And Cyril's like, a good dude, but he's also here for the Empire type of thing. So you're like, oh no, Cyril, oh no, it's the glass is breaking for him, like, God, Dedra's betraying me, and the Empires are bad people. And he kind of pushes Rylance down on the ground and runs away. And then we cut over to Cassian talking to the front desk guy at the hotel, and he has Cassian's back, and he goes, don't worry, I didn't put you on the log last night, so they didn't sign him in, so he won't, his cover won't be blown here on Gorham. And Cassian's like, thank you. And he tells him, I hope things work out for you. And the kid says, rebellions are built on hope. Oh, God, which is a line that Cassian says in Rogue One, and, what A New Hope is pretty much all about. The rebellions are built on hope. We then see the Gorman people as they crowd into the plaza, and they're chanting, we are the Gore, the galaxy is watching. And then Cyril goes to Dedra, and they stick him in a room with K2 droids or KX droids, and we see what could be K2SO in the future. It kind of looks at him like, and takes one look at Cyril, is like, yeah, I want to be a rebel. Cyril then goes and finds his way out of that little room, and goes and talks to Dedra, and he's in his anger starts to choke Dedra, and we're like, oh shit, I didn't know Cyril had this in him. Straight up starts choking Dedra and says they need it. It's the energy program. And she starts telling him, what he's been doing here, and that how long she's known and how long she's been playing him. And little did both Cyril and Cassian know, they both were together unknowingly putting together the Death Star, you know what I mean, for the Empire. Oof. But so Cyril is so very angry at Dedra, and she's still trying to lie to him, but she says, we will return home heroes. You didn't seem to mind the promotions. And he lets her go, and he says, good luck, Dedra, and he leaves. And then the crowd starts to sing their Gorman song, and it's they change from a chant into a song, and it's much more of the Imperial, we are the Gore, but it's in a space language, you know what I mean? But it's still a pretty chilling song. You hear it, you're like, oh my God, these people are just little do they know this is about to go way wrong in a minute, oof. But the Imperial cadets start making their way into the crowd because their general or whatever boss told them hey, you're supposed to clear a path, go into this crowd. But this is just all part of the Empire's plan, and the crowd starts to throw stuff at the cadets and starts to get rowdy, and Partagaz and Dedra order a sniper on the roof to shoot one of the cadets, which makes it look like it came from the Gorman people, even though it didn't. And then the cadets and stormtroopers start open firing at the people in this crowd, and it's all out gunfire and war now at this point. You're like, Jesus Christ, this is crazy. And Gorman rebels think that they're just gonna walk through the stormtroopers and the Empire, and it's not going as they plan. Every time they go to move forward, one of them gets taken out, and we pretty much see all of the Gorman rebels get wiped out, and it's tough scene. you know, as each one of them get picked off. But we then see one of the Imperial officers that ordered the cadets to go out, you know, kind of chuckles to himself and smirks as he's watching the fighting, and then he sends out K2 droids into the fight, or KX droids into the fight, and these things are strong and durable. And one of the droids grabs Ryland's daughter, one of the rebel girls that wouldn't listen to Ryland's and wanted to fight in anyways. It gets grabbed by this K2 droid and just gets yossed like 30 feet and apparently dies on impact, because when she hits the ground we just hear like bones crunching on her landing, and it's like, ooh, terrible. Yeah, people getting thrown into walls. Like, that's a brutal clip of just seeing those K2 droids screwing people up. Like, oof. We then see the hotel front desk guy that says rebellions are built on hope throws a bomb that takes out a bunch of troopers that are standing next to like the hotel window, and all the chaos of the fighting going on, and Cassian is trying to line up a shot on Dedra, and he has her in her sights. But this is right when Cyril notices him and starts running at him and tackles him, and they start fighting, and he's choking Cassian, and they start fist fighting, and then Cassian starts to beat his ass, and a bomb goes off outside the window, and they both fall. And then Cyril gets to Cassian's gun and is pointing it at him, and Cassian just turns around and looks at him and goes, "Who are you?" which is the title of the episode. And Cyril looks at him like, "I've been chasing you for years, and you don't even know who I am?" And like kind of, you know, is pointing the gun at him, kind of like looks down for a second like, come on, you don't even know who I am? And then Ryland shoots him in the side of the head. So Cyril is now dead, you know, and like, what the fuck? So now Cyril's dead, and a lot of Gorman rebels are dead here in 2BBY. Wild. That clip of Cassian and him fighting, though, is crazy. I have it here.
Who are you? Cassian! Come on, let's go.
So, you know, Cyril dies, Wilman comes in and grabs Cassian, and Cassian's looking at him like, who the fuck is this guy? And why the hell was he looking at me like he knew me? So all that 2 seasons worth of Cyril chasing down Cassian finally finds him and gets his hands on him in Gorman just to get shot and killed. Like, oof, crazy. But so Wilman comes and pulls Cassian out of there, and Wilman wants to go back for Drina, his girl, and Cassian is trying to talk him out of it when a crowd comes running for their lives, and one of the KX droids throws a person into a wall and then starts, you know, attacking the crowd and chasing after and slamming them into the ground, and starts chasing after Cassian. And Cassian and Wilman start running, and they're shooting the droid, and right when it looks like Cassian's about to get grabbed by this droid, Sam, one of the rebels, comes in and crushes the KX droid into a wall with the transport. And Wilman tells Cassian he's got to go back for his girl, and Cassian, you know, is about to leave, and he tells Cassian, you know, leave, you go, tell people what happened here. And Cassian asks for one more favor before they leave, and that is loading the K2 droid that will probably become K2SO into the transport. And Cassian takes off, turning on the radio, listening to what's, you know, happening and what's getting said about what's happening in this Gorman massacre. And we hear that Gorman has lost hundreds of citizens in this plaza, and it's Wilman's girl Drina on the radio begging for help. And Wilman, we then see, finds her, which is nice. You're like, okay, at least Wilman's alive for the moment. Oh my god, And then Cassian's driving away, and we just see a tear roll down his cheek, and that's the last we see of Cassian in episode 8. And you're like, oh my god, what a crazy episode. I can't, like, it went on forever. Like, I'm just briefly summarizing it in words, but this was a long episode that, like, dragged on, but, like you felt each a heartbreaking moment in this episode. It was so good. And as Cassian's driving away with a tear rolling down his cheek, we cut to Dedra Meero, and she's like breaking down and like pulling at her collar because it feels like she's getting choked, and her hand's shaking, and she like kind of has this like internal cry before pulling herself together, which has to be about her. This is like her mourning Cyril's loss. Like, she must have just got told that Cyril was killed, but Cyril's mother is also watching the news back on her home planet, and just wondering if her boy's dead or not, and she's holding hands with her friend, and that's the closing shots on episode 8 as we go into the credits with just his mom, like, you know, sadly like, I wonder if my boy's dead. Like, oh, heartbreaking. But that leads us then into episode 9, Welcome to the Rebellion. So coming off episode 8, the Gorman massacre, and all the news channels were pushing it out, you know, and talking about what happened on Gorham, and lots of rebels were dead, but Wilman and Drina were still alive last we seen, and Cassian was leaving. And they didn't accomplish their mission of killing Dedra, but Cyril was killed, and Cassian didn't even know who he was. Like, oh, crazy. But we open on thunder rumbling and raindrops as Senator Organa, played by Benjamin Bratt, shows up to a hearing, and he's hearing a commotion at the Senate, where one of the senators from Gorman, the Gorman senator, is being arrested, and Mon's there and says the number of Gorman dead is beyond belief, and they have gone too far, and we need to stand up and speak up and fight back. And Organa says that he needs to stay to stall, and that Yavin isn't ready yet. So that's what Bael's plan is here, is to stall the Senate so that the rebels have more time, type of thing. He also says, like, you know, the rebels need Mon, so Mon needs to give a rousing speech for these rebels, which we'll see later this episode. We then see Cassian is talking to Clea, Luthen's assistant, and he says that he's done after this, and she's giving him a pass, you know, that will get him into this building to save a senator. So Cassian is the one that's going to be saving Mon with Luthen's plan, and Clea's like, you want out? Oh, let me guess. You're tired. You're cranky. You're sore. You witnessed the bloody Gorman massacre. Of course you want out. But Cassian's like, I want to make my own decisions. And she says, I thought that's what we were fighting for. Clean yourself up. And then we see Mon practicing her speech when Luthen comes to see her, and he says Bael's people are corrupted, and he knows that they were supposed to bring her to Yavin. And Mon brings up Take Holma, her old flame, an old friend, and how quickly Luthen decided that he was a threat. And Luthen tells her, I have someone I really trust. You will see him, and you will ask him, are you alone? And he will say, I have friends everywhere. And we see that Mon's driver is a mole for the Imperial officers. She's on to him being on to her, you know what I mean? Like, so she knows that her driver's an ISB plant, but she doesn't trust him worth a shit. But this guy clearly wasn't the escape plan. They're supposed to be with Benjamin Bratt's, you know, people that are supposed to be corrupted, and then Luthen sent Cassian type of thing. So, you know, maybe we'll see what happened to that ISB driver plant mole thing. Luthen, when he's talking to Mon, is like, listen, your assistant that you trust so much has been talking to me and telling me information. Like, he's been working for me. And she's like, are you kidding me? So the only one I can trust is you? And then we see Mon go and talk to her assistant. She's like, how long have you been working for Luthen? And he doesn't lie, and he says 2 years since after her daughter's wedding. And she dismisses him immediately, and she feels so betrayed by him. The only one she thought she could trust, and he's been working for Luthen. So the only one she actually can trust is Luthen. And she doesn't really trust him either. But, you know, Luthen's at least got her back. A couple episodes back where we were like, oh, did Cinta kill Take Homa for Luthen? It seems like Take Homa did get wiped out to protect Luthen and Mon's secrets. And Mon has been very upset with Luthen for this. And this has been years now since this happened. We then see Cassian goes to meet Luthen. Luthen says, no Yavin for me, but Cassian says, I want to make my own decisions. And Luthen says, is that what you've been doing? And he says to him that you have appeared everywhere I have ever needed you. So saying more of like, you want to make your own decisions, you think I'm making decisions for you? You have been everywhere that the rebels have needed you and that I have needed you. And really, Cassian has been everywhere he's supposed to have been. Even getting caught by those stupid rebels with that TIE Avenger in the first couple episodes. It seems like everything's happening for a reason for Cassian, no? Like, that his path, although not a traditional one, is a set path nonetheless, in that he's on the right course. We then see that Bael's people, who may be corrupted, are meeting to discuss their extraction plan for Mon Mothma after her speech, but Luthen also has Cassian on the job, so two groups are both trying to get Mon to safety type of thing, but one of them might be corrupted, and it's definitely not Cassian. We then see Bael talks to Mon, and she says, you're brave enough to stay, I have to be brave enough to go. And he tells her that he has a 3-person escape team that we saw, but she says, do you trust them? And he says, of course, but do you know them? Personally? No. I can't, it's not safe, but don't worry about me. And she's not really worried about him, she's worried about what Luthen told her about not trusting his team, and she doesn't feel any better about what Bael has said to her here. But Cassian then goes and meets up with Erskine, Mon's assistant that betrayed her, for Luthen, and we see that one of Bael's team is an Imperial spy, so Luthen's information was correct. And Bael introduces Mon Mothma to speak, and the Imperials are pissed because she wasn't supposed to, and there was like a set list of people that were supposed to speak, and Mon all of a sudden gets slid in by this like loophole article. Oh, Article 750. Mon Mothma should be able to speak, and you guys can't interrupt her. So Mon gives a chance to give her speech about what actually happened to the Gorman Empire. So Mon gives her speech, and she says that the distance between what is said and what is true has become an abyss, and the death of truth is the ultimate victor of evil. And what happened yesterday on Gorman was unprovoked genocide, and the monster screaming the loudest, coming for us all, is Emperor Palpatine. Ooh, this is such a good little clip, and I was like, man, Mon Mothma, Genevieve O'Reilly, like, playing Mon Mothma is so good. And like, I don't know why, those little circle pods with the light up rings, and like this, anytime we're in this Senate room, it might just be because I just saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters again, and that fight with Emperor Palpatine and Yoda in this room is nuts. But such a good room indeed. But you know, Mon saying what happened yesterday on Gorman was unprovoked genocide, right? Like, in the Empire wiped out the Gorman, and the Empire trying to say the Gorman rebels were fighting, so we've dealt with them. Like, no, that's not what happened at all. Like, you just killed a bunch of Gorman people. And her saying Emperor Palpatine's name was like, oh, he's back, baby. Or just reminding us what time we're set in, where this is like about to be the peak power of Emperor Palpatine type of thing. As she says Emperor Palpatine's name, they shut the broadcast down, and Mon walks out, and Cassian is waiting for her, and she's like, I don't have time for interviews. And he tells her, like, I have friends everywhere, and she's like, I was supposed to ask you a question first. Like, she didn't follow the procedure like Luthen said to her. But Cassian is there to protect her, and he talks to her about her cousin Vel, and that Luthen is, you know, the one that sent him type of thing, and she still doesn't really know if she can trust him. But then Bael's girl, that definitely is an Imperial spy, comes in and tries to pull a gun on her and the group of reporters in this room. Cassian's standing there in front of Mon, and she's like got a gun on everybody, and Cassian has to shoot her and goes, anybody else? And Mon's assistant grabs her blaster and starts to help Cassian, and Cassian gives Mon his jacket, and they're running out, and she's like wearing his rebel jacket now, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And she's like running, and he's like, walk normal. And we have to make it back to the rear loading dock, and we have a ride waiting there, and she's like, you killed that woman back there. I don't think I could do this. And Cassian says, welcome to the rebellion, and that's the title of the episode. And she's like, what? What do you mean, welcome to the rebellion? Like, yep, you're a rebel now, Mon. but they are shutting down the building, and she goes, forget the loading dock, and they make it out the front door, and just as they make it out, her ISB mole of a driver is coming in to find Mon, and Cassian has to kill him and take him out, and she's like, oh my god, and he goes, take my hand, and they both run, and Cassian then takes her little ship car thing and drives Mon away, and is starting to rip away, and Mon seems to get more comfortable with this rebellious nature, because as he's ripping away, she's holding on for dear life, and then as he starts to take off, she's like, she kind of like settles into like, okay, this is where I'm in, this guy got me out of there safe, like, he must be Luthen's guy, he must be cool because he hasn't tried to kill me and he just killed 2 people to protect me. Like, Cassian is a murderer, but he's also a rebel. Cassian then gets Mon where he needed to, and Wilman is also there, and he's in the back with a wounded leg, but Drina and him got out alive, so clearly they got off Gorman, but Wilman took a shot to the leg or something, and he needs a doctor pretty bad. And Mon says she's not sure how to thank Cassian, and Cassian says, make it worth it. And Cassian gets Wilman to doctors, and now he's back on Yavin, and it's been days since he's slept, and he must be exhausted, and the rebel general that was giving Cassian a hard time when he was leaving kind of thanks him, and he says that don't worry about Mon, the Gold Squadron will take Mon Mothma to make her second speech to the rebellion, which we saw in Rebels, and I actually have a clip of her second speech that we don't get to see in Andor.
This is Senator Mon Mothma. I've been called a traitor for speaking out against a corrupt galactic senate. A senate manipulated by the sinister tactics of the Emperor. For too long, I've watched the heavy hand of the Empire strangle our liberties, stifling our freedoms in the name of ensuring our safety. No longer. Despite Imperial threats, despite the Emperor himself, I have no fear as I take new action. For I am not alone. Beginning today, we stand together as allies. I hereby resign from the Senate to fight for you, not from the distant halls of politics, but from the front lines. We will not rest until we bring an end to the Empire, until we restore our republic. Are you with me?
Look! They came! Look how many there are.
This, my friends, this is our rebellion.
Oh man, what an emotional clip. Like, we get to see Ghost Squadron, the Gold Squadron with Hera and Zeb and Chopper and no Kanan, but Ezra and like Mon Mothma giving that speech, really gathering the rebellion, and all the ships pop in. Like, man, what an absolute beast. Mon Mothma. If you didn't love her from this show, she's even better in Rebels, and like just seeing her on the front lines, really being somebody that is fighting the Empire with the rebellion. Like, fight the Empire. We then see Cassian tell the general from the rebellion that there's a KX droid back there. Put that together, would you? And then Cassian makes it back to Bigg. Biggs looks at him and says, you need to rest. And Cassian says, I'm done, Biggs. I've done what I can. I've done a lot. But I want this. This is what I want. I want to be with you. And he says that they will leave in the morning. And he says, the only special thing about me is luck. And I've played my hand already. And there's nothing worth more than this. I mean it. And Biggs says, I know you mean it. And hugs him. And the next morning, Cassian's sleeping in. And Biggs isn't next to him. Oh no. And Biggs left him a message saying that she's leaving because she can't be the reason that he gives up on the rebellion, and he has a purpose with the rebels, and she chooses the rebellion for both of them. And he runs to find her, and he's like hauling ass as we hear her talking, and she's long gone. And she says, when this is all done, we will do all the things we always wanted to, and I will find you, which is exactly what Cassian said to her and Bix and everybody at the end of season 1. Like, don't worry, I will find you. And, you know, just like the very first episode of this season, Cassian was trying to find his long-lost sister that we end up finding is long dead because Marva said, don't stop looking for her, she's gone. You know, everybody from Atari, whatever, anybody from his home planet is dead. Like, oh man, it's so heartbreaking. So Bix has left Cassian, and you're just like, God, why would you leave him? Like, fuck. And then Cassian gets called in as they are about to power up that KX droid that he brought in, and we see the origins of K2SO, and he powers on and says, if I've offended you, I'm sorry. And then, you know, Cassian's pointing a gun in his face, and he's like, if not, I would appreciate you pointing that elsewhere. And Cassian kind of like, you know, moves his gun like, huh, you're a K2S droid, you're a K2 droid, but you're not like any of the droids we've seen. And that's where the credits roll in episode 9. So the final 3 episodes, Bix left Cassian and so that he would stay with the Resistance. So that's why Bix is not in Rogue One. So maybe she doesn't die in the final 3 episodes. But I have a feeling these final 3 are either going to be fully Rebel focused, or Cassian's going to be focused on finding Bix type of thing, or he's just going to be fully pissed and forgetting about her because she left him type of thing. But damn, poor fucking Cassian. He lost Bix, and 3 episodes remain. Cyril died in 2 BBY. Whew. Oh god, the Gorman Massacre, a bunch of Gorman rebels died. Mon Mothma is officially a rebel, and Cassian is maybe getting a promotion and a new best friend with K2SO. So 1 more week remaining, 3 episodes remain, 1 more year with 1 BBY next week, and the finale batch of episodes 10, 11, and 12. And that will be a wrap on Andor Season 2. But don't worry, if you like these episode breakdowns of things, I've also been breaking down week by week, 1 episode at a time for The Last of Us Season 2. And that will continue to go on Sundays. So breakdown videos coming out on Monday if you're into stuff like that. But if you're just into Star Wars, I have other Star Wars shows I've broken down on the channel, like The Acolyte, Ahsoka. I believe I've done like Mandalorian, I think. But thank you guys so much for coming on by. My name is Big Cam. I'd love to talk more Andor and Star Wars with you guys. If you want to talk more, links down in the description below for my other social media. Send me a message anywhere or comment below your thoughts on Andor Season 2 and what you're excited for with Star Wars coming up in the future with 2 new Star Wars movies announced, and Mandalorian and Grogu in 2026. Can't wait. So very exciting time for Star Wars fans, and heading into next year will be a very exciting time as well. There's also a May 4th, what's it called, Tales of the Underworld that just came out that covers 3 episodes about Asajj Ventress and 3 episodes that cover Cad Bane's kind of origins. And I actually really like those. They were like 45 minutes apiece between the 3 episodes, so like 15-minute episodes. Not too bad, nice little shorts, but I would have loved to see a Cad Bane show and an Asajj Ventress show just individually, and getting to really flesh out those characters, because those type of people are really interesting, you know? But thank you guys so much again. One more time, like this video if you haven't, commenting below are best ways to support the channel, including subscribing if you haven't, and make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss next week's Andor episode when it drops, and you'll get the notifications. Once again, my name's Big Cam. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace!